was glad to finally retire. I'm an old man now. Some may say I'm suffering from dementia, but I know what it is. No one really knows what I know. The people I try to talk to about what I've experienced, what I've seen, what I've been told, they either don't believe me and think I'm crazy or they are crazy and full of conspiracy theories. I used to have dreams sometimes. They were of these weird large expanses, a room with no real ceiling and no real floor, no real end. In other dreams, I would be unable to move quickly as I was chased by some unknown creature. It always amazed me how many others had similar dreams and nightmares. I just thought it was part of the human experience. My beliefs about that changed when I was working to help create the largest computer simulation anyone had designed at that period of time. The project manager brought in a consultant. The consultant told me that what we were trying to do had already been done. I scoffed because as far as I knew, we were on the vanguard of technology. The government ensured that we were at least a decade ahead of the rest of the world. Well, if what this man said was true, we were behind. So I couldn't take the time while I was working to talk to him and figure out if what he had said was true or if he was just speaking in a manner that I didn't understand. At the end of the week, I was scheduled for some time off and I asked him to talk with me about what he had said before. He said we could talk at my condo. I didn't have my house yet. I don't even think Mary and I had met yet at that point. But anyways, he met me at my place and I thought we were going to talk there. But when I answered the door, he told me he was going to take me somewhere. I was caught up in trying to figure out what he meant by what he said before, so I didn't really care where we went. I just wanted to know whatever he knew. We drove to the industrial park and he took me inside a warehouse. It may still be there, but I think they tore most of those buildings down. He opened a door near the front of this warehouse. We passed through some front offices and got to the actual storage area of the warehouse. It was dark except for some security lights. He asked me, "What does this space feel like to you?" I didn't know what he meant, but I said it feels okay, I guess, dark, empty. At this point, I'm thinking this guy is going to offer me this warehouse as our new workspace. We were already set up at our current laboratory, though, so I wasn't really interested in moving the operation. Besides, I knew how much paperwork would be involved, especially with the requisition of new equipment. But he stopped me as if he could hear me thinking, and he asked me, "Does this feel familiar?" Now I have to tell you, I didn't know what this guy was up to, and I was starting to regret going out there with him. I wasn't necessarily afraid, but something seemed off. I thought for a little bit, and I told him, "No, it doesn't feel familiar." I don't know, maybe he had mistaken me for someone else. I'd never worked in that warehouse or anywhere in that industrial park. He told me to follow him. We started walking towards a door that I could barely see under the low light. He pulled something out of his pocket, something that looked like a remote control. It was lit up, not like a flashlight, but like a TV is lit up when you watch TV in the dark. He tapped on the device and then told me to open the door. The hair on the back of my neck was standing up. I was feeling very uncomfortable. I didn't know what to say, so I just started walking back to where we had come in at and told him I had to leave. I don't think I got 2 steps away when he told me he thought I wanted to see his work. I felt a little silly because now I'm thinking it's just a laboratory behind the door and he had all the space open for something they haven't built yet. So I opened the door and it was just an empty space. We walked in and I'm looking around. It smelled like a slightly musty office space, better lit than the rest of the warehouse, but there weren't any desks or cubicles set up, no computers, and no staff walking around. I looked at him and threw up my hands to tell him I didn't understand. He asked me if the space feels familiar. Maybe it was the excitement of the day, We had made some fairly good progress that week, and this guy had told me there's something even better that someone else created, but then nothing. I was feeling a little worn out. I decided I was willing to give up finding out about whatever he was talking about. Our simulation was coming together quite well, and I was happy enough with that. But when I turned around to leave to go back out the door was gone. It was just a wall. I was tired, not really in the mood for the weird game he seemed to be playing, so as I'm touching the wall to find the door, I'm telling him that I'm leaving. I think a normal person would have cut to the chase and said, okay, here's what I was telling you about. The guy just asked me again, does this space feel familiar? I didn't want to tell him because I didn't really care how the space felt at that point. I didn't care about anything but getting home and going to bed. I can't find the door. There's nothing on the wall to even indicate a handle or a latch or even a break where there might be a door. He asked me again if the space feels familiar. Sometimes you can see there's only one path to your objective, and then it was obvious. If I wanted to get out of this odd warehouse, I was going to have to play this guy's game. I told him yes, it feels familiar. And it did. I don't know what it was, but the space felt familiar, even though I was fairly certain I'd never been there before. And then Pandora's box opened. He proceeds to tell me how our world was a simulation and that the simulation had existed for a very long time. I denied it though because I knew that wasn't true, and I told him he was crazy. Since I couldn't find the door through which we had entered, I figured I'd find another exit. As I walked and searched, he followed me, talking. He told me that the area we were in now was the old simulation. It had been corrupted when we discovered how to create our own simulation, and it ran out of control. The creators of the simulation in which we live had built a new simulation, the world in which we now live. However, they were unable to completely disassemble the old simulation due to the associations and connections between the main database for the simulation and the programs that were used to render the world. So they erased as much of the old simulation as they could and bypassed the modules and subroutines that they couldn't delete and connected the original database with the new simulation. Because of this, we are left with memories of the old simulation. This is why I and many others have dreams and memories that seem to make no sense. We still remember the days during the time when the simulation was corrupted and everything seemed out of sorts. The corruption also altered some parts of the database, so some things aren't as we remember. He showed me the old simulation and told me all of this as a way to see that history is not repeated. When he seemed satisfied with my understanding of the situation, of the past, he took me to a door that led back into the warehouse. He continued to work with us on our programming for a little over 7 months. By that time, he had helped us to complete our code, putting in safeguards to prevent another disaster. Over that period of months, he divulged other secrets regarding the area where he had taken me, the old simulation. He said it was still connected and that anyone could travel there under the right circumstances. However, I shouldn't tell anyone about it because it was a dangerous place that should be left alone. The artificial intelligence module that had been programmed to create and render the world for that simulation had been severely damaged by the corruption and now functioned more as a computer virus or a worm. It would continue to run forever, believing that it was functioning as programmed. But it wasn't. Its creation should be left alone to remain a desolate wasteland of bastardized reality. I kept my promise and never told anyone. As I prepare for whatever lays beyond death, I don't have even a friend to share this with, and I don't expect any stranger to listen to my stories. My memory of that time period has faded over the decades, causing me to question if what I experienced was real or not. I suppose being that it was a simulation, it is a simulation, it wasn't and isn't real. So what is real? As an engineer, I don't like to work with abstract concepts. And I guess that's why I retired. It was too difficult to understand how much of my work was based in reality. Perhaps in the future, we'll know the truth about what's real and what's not real.